No bias, no bias, no judgment. Just open conversation. Just open conversation.
But here is a man who is focusing too much on content creation. And if we are to modernize the understanding of what Solomon was doing, I would call him a lifestyle content creator.
We welcome them all. You find us on YouTube, and Facebook. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Oh, let's talk. Let's talk.
A very good welcome to you, all our viewers. This is Let's Talk. Today, I'm your host, Tapiwa Makosa. You can call me Tap Mark. And today, we are still joined by our guest from last week, Gerald Musara, a serial entrepreneur, now based and furthering his studies in the Down Under in Australia. It's good to have you back, Gerald. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on this platform. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for making time for us to have another sit down after that very interesting conversation we had last time. And we felt it was needful that we continue on some of the aspects. So I will go straight ahead before bringing you back. TLD, content creation, comedy, skits. Tell me about that. And how did you visualize that? Come up with that, the reception that you had, and what was the vision?
Okay, thank you for that. You are not the first one who has asked me that question. So I will give a clear record of what was going on in my mind, why we had to do that. So the thing is, when we started doing those comic skits and stuff, the whole idea was part of a strategy. It was actually part of a strategy, because what we did was I just registered a media company. So the media company, the main thing we were looking at was to do photography, videography, video editing and stuff. So when we did the registrations, we knew that that industry is not easy to penetrate, especially the people whom I was trying to help, because the bottom line was, it wasn't just my business to make money. I was trying to help fellow brothers who were not employed. And they had an interest of some sort in videography and photography. So I said, we can establish something. And we had to buy a lot of equipment, like real studio equipment. We had everything. But now, in terms of getting the message to the audience, in terms of bringing that brand awareness, we found it to be challenging, because yes, I'm a Christian, but I didn't want to use the church as the marketplace. I wanted a different approach. So we had to sit down to say, okay, we are brothers. How can we push this brand? Because we've already invested in this thing. So we need to get a return on investment, because our agreement with the guys was, if I can recover my $3,500 that I had invested in that business, so I was practically a silent partner, just a co-founder on paper. Then I was a silent partner. So what we did now, we said, okay, the approach that I'm suggesting is controversial, because I understand the background where we are coming from. We are message believers. But the question that I need you to help me answer is it scriptural? Are we out of order? That was the biggest question I had with the guys. Then when we looked at things now, we said, we can go ahead with this, because precedence was already there and the culture was already there. The only difference was that we were now doing it in an industry which was dominated by unbelievers. Because by then, I remember very well, the most influential skit makers by then were the likes of Anana Madam Bossi, another comic pastor that were dominating the scene then, and Nigel, and all those likes. So we sat down, we said, a skit is just a drama. Do we do dramas at church? That was my first question to the team. I said, yes, since we were kids, end of year, we do plays. And they are recorded. If you visit our YouTube channels, church YouTube channels, they are there. That's proof enough that, yes, it's acceptable to act dramas. It's just that the audience that we are targeting is not the church. But as long as we understand what we are doing, we haven't broken any church order principle or something like that. So we agreed that that was the next move. Then the other question we need to answer was, what would God say about this approach? Because this was not our business, skit making, no. It was just a strategy, a plan to something. Because if you understand things now in that industry, in that media industry, to make money, you need to be known, you need visibility. And it's very difficult to build visibility when you have no portfolio. We didn't have proof that we can deliver. That's the first thing. Then the second thing, we didn't have that attractive and appealing proposal that was out of this world. Like, oh, this is a great idea. No, we said we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Is the audience there? Yes. So what do we need to do? We need to come up with a plan that allows us to present ourselves before a willing audience. And that's where the idea of skits came in. You know, when we started doing skits, you know, there was a mixed reception, you know. Some agreed, some did not agree. And I remember very well, we had 2 meetings, separate meetings with the 2 different deacons. Say, oh, now we are now competing in the world. Then I simply asked them the same thing. Is there anything new in terms of what we are doing? And if you didn't know, perhaps maybe you're aware of this, because I remember at one time we used to write a script together for church plays.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm the one who wrote this play in this year. I'm the one who wrote and directed this play from this period to that period. What has changed? It was acceptable because I was doing it for you. Now it's not acceptable because I've decided to put it on social media. And I said, we are not the ones who started putting things on social media. No. Go on our church YouTube channel. There are our videos there, and we never consented to that too. And you are making money out of us also. So there was a problem. There was a problem there. Then they said, no, and stuff. Then one of the deacons went to approach me. I think I got to Tunga because and I said, okay, Gerald, I need to understand you. And I explained to them. I said, this is just a way of communicating our message, building our brand. Whatever we do with our companies, it doesn't have to necessarily abide by your understanding of the word. So by then now, I remember we still had a pending issue, especially me with the deacons and stuff, because if you were following things in 2021, when we went on an aggressive marketing drive with the Musara and company, we agreed as a family that I'm going to be the face of the brand. I was going to be the face of Musara and company. So I had crazy ideas. And one of those crazy ideas was to use what we call influencer marketing.
Yeah.
I approached, we worked with Japreza, we worked with Mandam Boss, we worked with Nigel, Comic Elder, all these big guys now. We even approached Winky D, because these people, you need to understand it, they had an audience that I could sell to. And I needed their endorsement. But now the thing is, now there is this understanding where light and darkness cannot meet and stuff. Then I said, no, we don't need to be hypocrites. A business is not a religious organization. Our business is there to make money. And if you look at that business that I was now the face of, that is not a message business.
Family.
That's a family business. So me being there, yes, I may be one of the key stakeholders, but I'm actually employed there. So I said to them, I said, okay, do we have brothers here who work at Delta?
They pay big tithes.
Yes, I said, so kana tine hama dziri kushanda kuna nadheuta ngavatanga vasiya mabasa avo. We have hama dzinoverenga propaganda yenyika, tine hama dzinoshanda kuZBC. You know kuti zvandiri kutoverenga inhema izvi utozviziva pari kunyepwa pari kuitwa sese all those other things. So the thing was now, why do we have to be hypocrites? And why do we have to mix the two? The church and business are two different things. Unless it is a business that is built on church principles, like we want to be associate our brand with the church, then that is okay. I can give you an example. Voice of God is a business. There are things that Voice of God cannot do, you see, because they are a church-owned business of some sort. And whatever they do, it's going to be traced back to what the church believes, which is a different case with, what do you call this? These other businesses in the world. So already there, we had disagreements on the approach of how and where we were taking our things. Then I'm coming in now with a new company altogether, and I'm using a very new approach that was never done before in the message. You know, I'm going out there, expressing the talent. The talent is already there because we have been blessing the church since we were kids. With the same talent, the whole church laughing and enjoying.
For free.
Oh, these kids are so good. Now we are just taking that talent
and
out there. And I don't think we were out of order, because if we are going to light the world, how do you light the world? With your voice.
I think maybe I can come in there and say and ask this question that just popped up when you're saying, and I was noting them down. I do understand and see where you're coming from and what you're presenting, right? But then, so the question that comes up is then, how do we set apart, you know, I think we touched a bit on it on the last episode, but for now is what would you encourage for the young entrepreneur in church? You know, maybe they are already in some sort of business, but they have that feeling of, okay, I think if I can drive, they probably have got links to Comic Elder, the one who recently got the car from the president, you know, and because they are from the same wood, you know, and they want them to say, okay, fine, my guy, just name drop my thing. What would you say then? How do you set apart, as you're saying, you're using the term Christian, but in this sense, maybe for other viewers that are not in the message community, when he says Christian, is specifically meaning message believer, because you then went on to name people that as they testify that they are Christians, they it being a different brand from what you would want to stand for. What then would you say is helpful, maybe for that person who is at the borderline, or say, okay, fine, can I engage Japraiser because in the sekuru wangu? Can I then involve this other guy, you know, maybe because we have got relations, and you know, I just want to shout out. And on top of that, I think you had on the Musara company, you had the jingle with one of the jingles also, you know, and maybe borrowing it. I'm thinking Tinashe Mugabe, you know, with the DNA show also in itself, it's got jingles that are being sung now in community, you know, and what would you then advise? As for advice, not necessarily to say because it has been done by Jerry or because we see Tinashe doing it, but to say, okay, fine, what is the proper advice you then give to somebody who's in that line of business, you know, and to say, okay, you are a Christian or you are a message believer, but you want to do this. This is the best advice.
Or the best advice I would give to someone, especially to business owners and all these entrepreneurs, is you need to be sober. That's the first thing. You need to be sober. You should have that ability to separate church from business. Yes, it's good that you can have everything about your life centered around your spirituality and the religion, but you need to separate these two, because you are committing in a world that doesn't care that you're a message believer or not. And you've put yourself out there to commit. So unless you set up your business to say, I'm going to sell to message believers only, and I'll tell you that will be hypocrisy. There is nothing like that where you can set up a business to say, my only clients, I only serve message clients or Christian clients. No, it doesn't work like that. So the very fact that you are presenting your skill in the form of a business in the world, what you are going to get there is competition, right? So if there is competition, obviously you need a way to make your business profitable. And the best thing you can do before you do anything else is to be sober and appreciate that this is a business, is different from a church. That's why you see we have got a lot of Christian businesses that collapse before they go anywhere. Do you know this? I'm actually still in the process of validating this research, but from what I've observed so far, the majority of church people-owned businesses, they die before they are 2 years old. And I still need to validate this. But from what we have found so far, I'll tell you one thing. Why is it like that? It's because we take business advices from people we are not supposed to be taking business advices from. Kana uchida kubroka business rako, take financial advice or business advice from your pastor or from your minister or from your elder. Why? Those people were put in your life by God. They have zero financial literacy knowledge. They have zero investment in knowledge, the majority of them. They know nothing about the corporate language, corporate code and stuff. It's more like me, I'm a pig farmer. If I struggle, it's pointless to go to my pastor to ask him about advice on how to run my business. He doesn't even know anything about pig farming. The reason why I'm able to come to that conclusion is because I'm sober. I appreciate his position in my life. Unless I'm saying the problems I'm facing in my business are from a spiritual point of view. But I tell you, 99% of the reasons why Christian-owned businesses fail is because we can't separate our spirituality from the business. And we take advice from people we are not supposed to be taking advice from. You go to your pastor to tell him that he should give you advice on your business, but that pastor has never run even a single tax shop. He has never employed someone. He has never been in the corporate world there. So obviously what he's going to give you is opinion, but it's opinion that is very poisonous in the sense that it's opinion that you respect. It's opinion that you think this is the word of God. You think this man is the voice of God communicating to my business. And that's why you see the majority of church-owned businesses, or where the people there are spiritual and not sober enough to separate these two things, they struggle. And these are the same people also, we end up saying we only hire people of the same faith. I tell you, if you come to any of my organizations, right now we are still in the recruitment drive. We want to set up a Blawayo office of Studweka Connect. If you look at the number of people that we are interviewing, I don't care what you believe in. What has united us is a common goal, a common company goal to say, are you skilled? Can you add value to my business? Then when it comes to setting up things, company policies and all these SOPs, we make it very clear that this is not a religious organization. Even if I am to share with you the contracts I sign with people who work for me, I tell you, and pandinoshanda nema brothers nema sisters, ndinoshanda nema brothers nema sisters, even if you poke them, even if you Studweka Connect right now, we actually have them. But what I tell them during the onboarding meeting, the first meeting we do after we hire them, I tell them, ndikakuona wakagara uchiterera tepi basa rangu sina kuti ndikudzinga on the spot. Atisi panapa pakuda kuti uchagara panapa nekuda kuti tinotenda zvakafanana ende ndichanzwa kutya because ndanzwa uchiterera muprofita unozoti brother waimbe wenyoka vakandidzinga vanzwa ndinzwa shoko raMwari. Remember your obligation, your contract has obligations.
Yeah.
And you are only employed as far as you add value and as far as you respect your contract and as far as you perform. As long as you can meet those three criteria, then we can work together. So the reason why people fail Tapioca, we are not sober enough. We can't separate these two. And we want to believe that everything is spiritual, and any spiritual person in your circle can have an opinion even on your business.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's given. and hopefully you viewers, you are taking in what Gerald Musara is saying here. If you agree, please show us in the comments. If you disagree, please also show us in the comments. We want to keep the conversation going on, and as we say here at Let's Talk, is we are just here to have this conversation, being facilitated by this new media that we have. It could have been we are under the jacaranda tree, or it could have been that we were under a bridge. It could have been that we were under near the poster, along Robert Mugabe Way. Wherever we have these conversations, you can also have them. So make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Please share it into your WhatsApp groups where you meet with others, and so that we can keep the conversation going. Now, coming back to you, Gerald, I stopped you at one point when you were now going paralleling between doing what the world is doing, when you had those conversations. And now the question now that I'm going to have is not to be controversial, but let's go back into the message world. We have this quote: if the cigarette company, a church deceived by the world, if the cigarette company found success and the vodka company found success by advertising using television, that doesn't mean that the gospel is going to find success using television. There is such, I'm not quoting verbatim, but I think it exists. I think it's in the church deceived by the world or something like that. What then do you think should be the attitude for entrepreneurs, for companies, for people, in trying to approach these new medias? Because we also have got business people, they sit in boards, when they are doing their marketing approaches, what is the best approach, especially when there's new avenues that are coming up? We are speaking of skits, you used it as a strategy for TLD to say, okay, we've got a media company, but we haven't done a wedding for anyone. So the least that we can show we have camera and good editing skills is for us to act. At least people see the skill. We've got the equipment, they see the skill of editing. Then they might come to say, you guys, can you take a video of us on the wedding? What should be the best approach then for that individual? They want to market. Should we just keep printing on paper, or what would you say in light with this quote that I've just paraphrased? Because I think from it you can see that aversion towards the introduction of either new media or new means of spreading, either it be the gospel or whatever.
Like I said, my message remains the same. That is the borderline point: be sober. And in this regard, now you want to push your business, you need to understand the environment you are operating in. So if you look at it now, Tapiwa, what is the new currency? The new currency right now is attention. And you need to also understand one thing: people buy from you because they feel like they know you. And right now, what is the best way of people having that kind of feeling that we know you is by you presenting yourself in the media that is available. And in this case, we are talking of social media. I'll tell you one thing. If you are going to market on social media, content creation is one of your key strategies. And I think I did a video where I explained to people what really content creation is. It's just a marketing tool that you need to use. But we confuse now content creation with what we have come to attribute the meaning of content creation. But now, as a Christian, if you are sober enough, you know that you only light the world by your voice, by your message and stuff. Then, for me, I'm a Christian. I always refer back to the Bible. And I'll tell you this, whether you agree with me or not, the biggest and the greatest content creator in life is God himself. The second biggest content creator ever to live, besides the Lord Jesus Christ, is Solomon. Right. So I'll give you a scripture, and I need you to go back to it. Let me check on my Bible. I want you to read 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 10. It says, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others. So If my gift is in acting, that doesn't mean I'm not a Christian. If my gift is in marketing, it means I need to serve to others. And this is the word of God, which uses creativity as a tool of service. And if you remember in my last video, where I was talking about these things, I talked of Solomon. Solomon wrote 3,000 proverbs. Do you know what a proverb is? In modern day language, I would say it's a post or a tweet. He was using it in the form of letters and in the form of just, he would write something, then spread it across to the people. So if I am going to check someone's profile right now, how many of us have 1,000 tweets or 1,000 posts? None. But here is a man who is focusing too much on content creation. And if we are to modernize the understanding of what Solomon was doing, I would call him a lifestyle content creator. He wrote 1,005 songs. Then if you look at how he would distribute his message now, it was in the form of poetry, psalms, proverbs, and even songs, right? All those things. He knew what he was doing there. Then we have got Moses, who is the first biggest content creator. He wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. Do you agree with me that being an author is content creation? Writing books is content creation?
I was allowing you to finish your point and then kind of give you a different perspective from what you are putting, because don't we run in trouble in saying anything of value as long as it is distributed either by media channel is going to be a content creation? Because then therefore doesn't content creation itself lose its meaning of what is content creation? You're right, because
what is content creation? Let's answer that.
This is from my misunderstanding. All right.
Yeah, what is content creation?
You are the expert in that, because as I am listening to you, I do see where you are coming from, right, and I do understand what you are trying to pull on, but are we not then in my mind? How do we separate? Before I answer you, I'm trying to think. How do we separate the issue between the message that is being given and the media that is being used to transform to give that message?
We can't control the media, because there are companies who are already controlling media.
No.
And wait, in the modern world,
wait, Jerry.
Yes.
Wait, Jerry. In media, I mean, right now, this is a podcast. That's the media we are using, right? That's the medium we are using. We are doing a podcast. That's the media we are using. If I write a post on Facebook, that's the media I've chosen to use the post. If it was a radio program, the radio program then becomes the media. So then if we then take that approach of saying, okay, fine, Solomon wrote poetry, he wrote songs, he had these proverbs, that was content creation, then don't we then at the end of the day think we conflate, we end up opening this big, huge balloon so that we fit every other thing that could be of value as if it is content creation? Yet being an author doesn't necessarily mean you're a content creator. No wonder what content are you creating? There is exactly. and from a media perspective, as you would understand, you had a media company, then it's why then, as you are about to allude, we have got media companies that run. Can we say a newscast is content creation? Do you get that? Or then can we say if I write a book, is it content creation itself, or me taking excerpts from the book itself then to give you a teaser so that you go and read my book is the content creation? I think content creation, then, if I'm looking from down below without fully understanding it's either a form of content, when we put it that way, a form of content, or a form of content that uses media to attract, either people as to get to a service, as to get to a product, or as to get to whatever that they are being, it to give a certain value. It goes back to the issues of why do we use the media? The media is there to entertain, to educate, and to whatever, to make people down, if you want to put it that way, But then does every other thing fit into this, what we call content creation? that is where
I'll give you the modern understanding of what content creation is. And when I'm talking about this, yes, I might be paraphrasing the meaning of content creation, but it's coming from an authority point of view, right? I actually did a course in content creation. I actually did a course here Facebook where I had to pay $75 later only for a certificate. I'll share it with you. The content creation again. And the definition of content creation is just the packaging of a message or a thought in a bid to express a view, perceptions, to educate, to entertain, and to bring awareness. And this message that has been packaged can now be distributed in the form of an audio, a video, a text, and a form of expression, like dancing and all these things. So the key things now that we have to appreciate now, which is central to content creation, is video, is audio, then text. You see.
Images
so what we do now, when you have packaged your message to fit into any of these things, then you are into content creation. Your ignorance in accepting it is not an excuse, but that is the real thing. It's a book, my friend. But it's a Bible. All right, that's fine.
Okay, fine.
Do you get where I'm coming from?
I do.
I will give you an example. Mufudzi avasi baba wangu that noise anoziya ndi baba wangu pamweya but zvesho asi baba wangu boza vasi pabeth pangu ka ende panonzi kuchikoro kudiwa baba ka ndikwanisa kuenda nafundisa vasi baba wangu. But it's all about how do you understand things, and sometimes we want to confine ourselves and expand our scope of understanding in our shell. I need to feel safe when I say these things. But my friend, whatever we are doing is content creation. I gave an example. You would go to my radio stations. Why was he using radio stations? Because that was the medium that he could spread his word. But next thing about Michael Jackson.
Gerald, you're going to be beaten. Hans William Brother was a content creator.
Yes, he was a content creator. Voice of God was based on content creation. Because let me clarify this. Because I know who want to be spiritual, ignore these facts. My tapes, and those tapes were controlled media. Do you know what
they are still controlled media up to that one?
Yes. Cinema tapes are not released because of the contents in there, and because there was now an attempt to manage the brand, the messaging, and everything. Cinema tapes are not released. Then it's we had to do another recording of that message. That part here. We had so many examples. That was controlled media. You see, and the voice of God right now, yes, we are spreading the word of God, never spoken words and stuff. That is controlled media because it could measure the three things of content creation. So we use my books, my tapes, my spoken words. Then we have got in the form of audio. Then it's my videos. How many videos? If you go even online, you can see him profita TV and stuff. So the only thing is, we don't want to feel unsafe or uncomfortable when having these discussions, because stuff.
No.
But you need to be sober, especially if you are an entrepreneur. Which can work advertise my services are TV because TV. Are you selling to message believers?
People are watching television. I think no, the reason why I asked that is I wanted you to make sure, I wanted that the listeners, and I hope you guys that are listening and watching this are being pricked in your hearts with what Gerald is positing here. Content creation. If you go on online content creation, I think the simple definition you find is the process of developing and publishing various forms of media such as text, images, audio, and video to engage and inform a specific audience. So the the plays that we do end of year for Sunday school, that is content creation the whole year. When we say memory verse, it is a form of content that you are creating, because you have got certain people that you have in mind whom you want to target, and you come up with a media that you have packaged your message with, and then you spread it to them. Now, but that is the way that Gerald has tried to put it, and I hope I summarized it okay. Gerald, can you confirm if I summarized it well?
Yes, that's exactly what we are talking about.
Exactly. Thank you. Now, Gerald, I want to draw you to this now. You said something about where you are going to consult for information, right? And as you were talking, I thought I've got this role where now, because if you are in the message for to say you are in a community where you think where you are encouraged, I think we have heard this statement, you owe your thoughts to your pastor. And now here you have given an example of saying, well, yes, he might be my shepherd, but he doesn't have maybe an understanding in business, and I'm dealing with these issues. What best can I do? So the question that comes in, what do you think now, because you've engaged with church leadership on different issues that you are being considered controversial or either brother Magurasika, what do you think is the role of training for ministers in pastoral work, so that they be able to deal with certain characters like tap marks, the Geralds of this world, guys who are like, you know what, we hear what you are saying, but it doesn't make sense, or it doesn't align with what we are reading, and it doesn't really, help me in that sense. I just want to hear your opinion. What do you think could be done if there is going to be a reformation in, and I know maybe this is not in line with the topic, a reformation in pastoral training? Should we just say, oh, taps, because you just come here and preach, and we see you preach the tapes always, and you don't say anything else apart from what the tape is saying, then you are good to go as a pastor? Do you, in your experience of dealing with these different issues and in conduct, order, and discipline, and I'm highlighting discipline, have you ever felt of issues to see maybe there is need of strengthening, or maybe there is need for where pastors need them to go either for counseling, taught to be a better leader, to see, okay, fine, this is how you do with human people? Your take on that?
Yes, I think even the church is moving in the right direction in doing that. Not just the Church of My Faith message, no. Even the majority of churches, they are moving in that direction, because there have been drastic changes in terms of regulatory frameworks, even in our country. Churches are now accountable at law, which was never a thing before, because we wanted to appear religious and spiritual. And we are coming from this background, you don't question zvatarwa papulpit, and ukada kupikisa munhu waMwari anogona kunge wakutopikisa neshoko raMwari. But now governments have now come in place to say, no. These needs to be controlled, this group of people, and they have to also abide by the laws. So now, if you look at it now, I think it's going to be mandatory soon, because if you are following what is happening in the legal fraternity, they are looking forward to formalize that. But a pastor anofana kuita a formal training, either by a government institution, because they are dealing with the people who are vulnerable. Then they are stewards. They are seen as the go-to people. So Panama pastors vanozodedzwa testify at court, and this is where all these things are coming from. And was this person who was giving counseling and guiding and is not even trained in offering those services. Munane depression real pastor has depression because he was never trained mukudila therapy.
I don't want to
Yes, exactly. And I know of someone at a personal level. Wekuti sister vakapinda mu andikukanganwa tema yacho inoitika kana munhu abva mukuzvara iyai overabara mutrauma iyoyo,
postpartum depression.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, munoziya hama iyoyo. Exactly. Sister vakatosvika patime yekuti vakanzi vanoda kunamatirwa zvakasimba because sister wabatwa nemweya tsvide kumusha kwawo ida kuparadza musha. But sister needed help. Then tine macases isusu ekuti kune vanhu vakaunza vanhu vaipenga vakatosangana musoro dzakatacha chaichaio kune mafundisi staff ozonzi munhu aisungirirwa pamuti achinamatirwa. All those things because someone who is handling that situation is not trained to handle that situation. It's more like what I see as an anomaly. Message is the good thing hatina izvozvo, but unoona kune mamwe machurches ekuti a pastor anenge ari someone asiri married ari kuita counseling yemarriage. It doesn't work. Because how can you teach on something that you have never experienced, you don't even know? But given kuti vanhu vanobva vati respect the office, that's where the error was coming from. Respect the office. Haisi ignorant the respect. No. Tine vanhu isusu mubhaibheri wekuti vaita kunge mabhanditi nenyaya yekuti vanokwesena everything because they were not blindly following. Vanyatsoti no, izvi zvinhu hazisiri izvezvi. Ndosaka uchiona kuti even hama popa yakadzi yatendeuka handitika zvakatotora Mwari convincing yavo vega kuti Peter agamuchire hama iya because he was being sober. But no. Tine hama isusu tinozwa kuti brother ningi wakafushirwa nekuda kwehama. And then you come here otanga kuti iwewe Mwari vataura newe enda hapana mumwe proof ukuthi yo Mwari akakurova uri pakati peroad. You want us to believe that? And if you read your Bible very well, even the prophet made a comment about it kuti pakauya Paul vanhu vakanamata vakasvinura for the first time.
Yep.
Both vanhu vaitya kuti vakangotsinzinya chete vanhu vapera. Handiri kuona. It took the convincing of God because that is the office iripo, but ndiye munhu ari kuti ndakakupa makiyi edenga, but it took a convincing from God. Now machurches anga ari kuoperate on that level. Then hurumende yakuuya now uchiti no, we need to regulate zviri kuitika chii kumachurches. In Zimbabwe last year tine mufundisi uya wekuti akati vanhu ngavatsanye staff vakanofira kumakomo vaya. It's still a case under the law right now. Tine macases ekuti isusu munhu anorepwa muchechi mufundisi over aihandla nenzira yaanofunga kuti inoita kuti chechi isapwanyike zvisaunze kuti bad publicity. That's why now vakunzi we need to control that. Then ndichiuya kuside kwangu kwandofarira the business side of things, the churches are also moving in the right direction because ukaita kuti mubhodhi rechurch munozowanwawo futi vanhu vokuti vanenge vachitobva from a business background wokuti ukatarisa kuti maprograms mazhinji ane chekuita nebusiness kana nemaprojects stuff, they are not being led by the pastor. The pastor is just there as in a ceremonial office or in ceremonial capacity. The church is now slowly accepting that kuti no, yes munhu akaiswa apa naMwari ndo office yake staff, but chaasingaziye haaziye, no matter how spiritual you want it to appear. So but I still think we still need more of training pastors kuti anokwanisa kudifferentiate nekuva honest to themselves and to be held accountable if they act out of order kuhandle masituations anenge asingagone. But now the challenge is there is no precedence. That's why it's very difficult. And to touch the church unobva waita kunge chi patone zvimwe zvamakuda kuti nyika yapanduka yakupandukira churches stuff, but the government is being tough. That's why I think by end of next year churches will be paying taxes, which was unheard of. Zimbabwe. Australia, I give you an example. Australia kuno mapasta chegumi chaatobhadhara chaanobhadhara tax.
Earning yake.
It's income.
It's income, yeah.
But for Zimbabwe, tinoti hatikwesene because yadyarwa mimba yaJehovah. You see, so that's why you see kuti it's very difficult when you are operating in that environment. We attach spiritualism to expertism.
All right, I think on that now, because this is just an extrapolation of the conversation. Do you see? Because I know, like outside of the message, people, apart from maybe a few people who then become apostles, people do go to seminary, right? Do you see in then this our community? Because in seminary, from my understanding, it's not just you're going to be learning on the Bible itself. Some do have got leadership courses. You take pastoral courses, to be taught, okay, fine, this is what you do. This is what pastoral work entails, Do you see that we are now coming to a juncture, maybe if the rapture takes long to come, where if not, message pastors are going to come up, the coming generation will come up to say, instead, because we have had challenges of this, because it's more like I'm in a town away from most towns, and if I'm to say I want to be a message preacher and pastor here, I would have started my church and started pastoring. Do you get that? Because I can read the quotes and give. Or we need that form of formalization. Do you think people are having that in their minds? A formalization of sort of like, if we are going to have an institution, you know, that in itself is run by message-centered people who have got their minds, you know, at least say if you want to do pastoral work, or we have seen you in ministry, okay, fine, there is these courses that you need to do, or at the least encourage the young people then that are being groomed or that are being taught to be ministers to say, okay, fine, we have seen you have got this zeal and you are of service, you are ministering. Can you see, I think here is the series on YouTube, because on YouTube you can go on YouTube, you can do seminar on YouTube, there are free resources there. You know, there's a series on YouTube where you're being taught pastoral work. Or are we coming to a point where they can actually say, no, we need to send you to a seminar? For example, William Branham had to send Billy Poe to a seminary, you know, to say, go to a seminary, Billy Poe, and learn, you know, at least understand what pastoral work, understand about how biblical text is produced, understand hermeneutics, understand about interpretation of the Bible and everything else. Do you think we'll come to that point, or us actually saying this, it will be taken, will be like, oh, these guys now want us to be a denomination, and or maybe there's entrepreneurial gap for you and me to say, okay, but let's establish a college. Everyone that wants to do this thing and is in ministry, let's work on a syllabi of some sort, you know, and say, okay, fine, these are the, we might not necessarily teach you the doctrine of what are the seven thunders, you know, but this is the conduct that is expected of you as a pastor, because you're going to meet these different challenges. Do you see the message going that way? Or
we are already going that
no?
way. We are already going that way, but it's not yet formalized. Because if you look at it, whenever new ministers are ordained, they are assigned a mentor of some sort. And before their church gains independence, it's considered to be a sister church of it. And the pastor of that bigger church is obviously providing mentorship to them. So we don't just want to systemize it because it will paint a picture of denominationalism. You see, but it's already happening. I have seen a lot of leadership workshops happening in the message. Even the pastors also going there. I think there was one which was held in Mutare last year or so. You know, those are workshops and seminaries where these people are now going to be trained. But I don't know if there is a syllabus that is being followed, or we are just following the message of a bigger pastor or some sort. I don't have details to that regard, but I tell you, you can really tell that this is the direction we are going. And now we also need to appreciate that there is now a generational change that is happening. If you look at it, the new churches that have been established in the last 20 years or so, most of the people who are leading those churches are actually educated people, and the people who understand what we call legal obligations. And these are people who also understand a little bit of what professionalism is all about. Because one way or the other, you need to appreciate that a church is an organization that is legally, recognized by the state. That's why we need to register. That's why a church needs a compliance certificate. That's why a church needs to pay council taxes. All these other things. It's an organization that is truly regulated by government statutes or statutory instruments, if I may put it that way. But now when it comes to how the individuals were operating within these legally recognized organizations, that's where we still have a problem, because it has not been formalized. And it's going to be difficult to try to push for that move, because the first thing that comes to people's mind is this brother is backsliding and he wants to take us to denominationalism and stuff. But that mindset is slowly going away. That's why you see right now, churches before, it was never allowed to be on social media. But the churches themselves, we now have church handles on social media, church YouTube channels on social media. So it tells you that there is a change that is happening. Yes, we may not like the pace of the change, but the change is happening. And we are slowly appreciating that we are operating in a certain environment, playing a different game that requires certain rules of the game. So you either play by it or you are lost. That's why you see even live streaming. COVID was an eye-opener, COVID-19, to churches. Because we believed that if you want to do something online, you are not a serious believer. But COVID taught us the other way. And if you look at the number of churches that then started to have live streams, and there are testimonies that are being received on live streams, so it's all about where the church wants to go. And if we have got the council of elders, they are there, but they are not officially there. We just don't need to admit it, but they are there. People who make and say things in message that matter. People who have got influence over every other assembly, they are there. It's just that there are no titles attached to it. But we know that there is nothing that you can talk about in the message and leave Pastor Chitsinde. It's impossible. There is nothing that can happen in the message circles, Chinosia and a brother Chikos. It's impossible. And a Pastor Moyo. It's impossible. Then we are also talking of Anna brother Chiwaura. Pastor Chesa was in that group. These people, no matter how you want to put it, you can never run away from how they influence the direction of the message.
Yeah. No, you make valid and solid points on that point. And now that we are seeing in this kind of like transitioning from that generation to the mid age, that are like our elder brother generation. These are our like grandfathers that are passing. We are now coming, the churches are now coming more of like the elder brother Mkoma. The current pastors are more like Mkoma. You can reach out at Mkoma level, not necessarily at Baba level and stuff. Yes. And it's very interesting. But you raise a point of like, because there's actually an existence of these structures, but when we do not formalize them, don't you think we kind of like sometimes are caught up in a seemingly hypocritical way of doing things, where we are averse to the idea of formalizing things, but yet we operate in the very same thing?
It's because, if I may put it that way, church leaders, they know this, and they are having these kinds of discussions like the one we are having right now, because they see the winds of change. It's there, you can't deny it. No matter how ignorant you want to claim, you can't deny it. So also they are having these discussions. But now, if you look at if we are being hypocritical, I wouldn't say they are being hypocritical, but they are just trying to be safe. Everyone is trying to be safe because everyone now, there is this general understanding that religion or Christianity per se is under attack. Mm-hmm. And it's true, it's under attack. Mm-hmm. So ideas may come in as good ideas and stuff and suffocate the word of God in the church. So it takes someone who is bold, to say, okay, this is how I do it. Even if you look at how pastors or church ministers are now influencing people's lives and businesses, it was unheard of before because people had this mindset that a pastor is a Levite. Whatever his income is to come from the church. But no, it's no longer the case. We have pastors who are running multi-million dollar businesses.
Churches themselves, they've got arms that are like businesses and stuff.
Yes, not just arms. I'm talking of real business being owned by a church pastor. We've got pastors who are running practices. They've got firms, legal firms. They've got marketing firms. We've got brothers who have got, if I am to name drop one, I know you won't be offended. Example, Kingdom is one who is dominating the conference sector in Zimbabwe. Because whatever has to do with the live streams and conferencing, he's dominating that space. And he's one guy who is respected in the message because you look at his contribution, you can never take it away from him. His contribution in the last 20 years in the message. So he is one influential figure. But he is running a business really very successful. Then you've got my pastors nema businesses. We've got mama trustees, my deacons, vatori employers, So it changes the conversation because your pastor understands business also and is not solely dependent on income coming from the church. This is where the problem was before, because there was this general understanding a pastor is a Levite. He only has to eat whatever has been provided for by the church. And I think we now have a new breed, not just a new breed. I think it's the economy that taught us the hard way that you need to work, my friend. And we still got pastors who are full-time pastors and full-time employees as well, because they know, yes, there are souls to lead here, but there is also a family of mine, my physical family, that needs to eat. And if you look at how the church is funding your life, you can really say, oh, for now, it's safer for me to continue working. Yeah. So as long as you've got people who have got that entrepreneurial mindset and that professional approach to things, you can really tell. Taps is so easy for you to go to a church and tell that this church is being run by a professional or not. I can tell when I get to a church.
Yeah,
you can look at even the sound system. Do you know even the sound system at the church can tell you that we have got professional pastor here or not? I'm telling you.
I know, Jerry. Now I'm gonna push a button on this one now. Well, it's Let's Talk, ladies and gentlemen. It's Let's Talk, and I think now we are just picking at random whatever is coming to mind, and just picking on the mind of what is on Jerry's mind, and also what is on our minds. Or here on Let's Talk, you can leave a like, and you can subscribe to the channels, and you share with everyone. And we want you also here on the podcast. Yeah, it's free for everyone. You can come, we can have a discussion. If you want to question me, well, we are open to that. If you want to be questioned, or you want to have a discussions, we are open to that. Now on the formalizing of things, Jerry, this just came to mind. Don't you think that this fear of trying not to risk, you know, the bad from happening, and then having things informally set up, is the ones that usually put us in trouble when the leader passes and then splits do happen?
Yes, that's one of the biggest problems. And like I say, as Christians, we need to be sober, because either way, this is an organization, you know, built on a community, a group of people who have got a common and shared belief. But we should never forget one thing, Kichirivan. And the nature of human beings is wherever two or more people are gathered, there is politics. That's why you can never separate church politics from these events and developments, because tagaratirivan maonera oneta zvinhu nemaonera andeta zvinhu ndakaita sei akatosiyana. But I tell you one thing, churches have constitutions, right? But my constitution is always what
do they have constitutions? Do they have, or they have a copy, especially with the churches, most of them have a copy of the Branham Constitution, and it's not adapted to the Zimbabwean setup?
No, those might be very small churches, but I tell you, all these big churches, I tell you, they have constitutions. But those constitutions, of course, they are prone to vulnerabilities. Like we see how these have been manipulated, because there are a lot of gray and ambiguous areas there. But churches,
are they readily available, Jerry? Are they readily available, the constitutions? Do members of the church know, like, okay, I can tell you, you see this paper that I'm holding on, I visited a church, and this is their constitution. The pastor was like, oh, Taps, we visited us. This is our church constitution. I went there 2 times only. And they say, like,
that's a different approach.
So I'm thinking now in terms of, okay, churches do and might have constitution apart from the adopted. You see, I've also been in big churches. You see, and we are talking post wars, post 2018, 2019 wars.
Yes.
Yeah, you see, and you're talking about constitution and the availability of this constitution. Are the constitution adapted for the church, for that local church, or we have taken and printed out the Branham Tabernacle Church constitution of 1965, you know, or 1963 or 1965, and then we try to just add 1 or 2. I know of churches that went on.
Because generally that's what we should do. Even if you look at the Seventh-day Adventists, the constitutions they have at local assemblies, Like these ones, they've got a council. It's different. But if you look at them, they are from the founder's perspective, the bigger tabernacle. In our case, it will be the Branham tabernacle. So obviously, whatever constitution that is going to come, it has to be intra-vires the broader constitution. It has to align. It doesn't have to be ultra-vires the Branham table constitution. Constitutions are there. But the thing is now, where I was coming from, we have people who are drafting these constitutions trying to tailor custom it to the local assembly, but they are not even qualified. They are not even lawyers. They're just spiritual brothers who are there, who say we are acting on what we believe is good for the church. They've got good intentions, but they are not legal minds to write a constitution. That's why you see, I'll give you an example of Eastleigh Tabernacle. This is one thing people we don't want to talk about. We are not comfortable of talking about these things, right? But I tell you, the reason why we had the problems even at Eastleigh Tabernacle for that split, and even in Mashingo, when the Mashingo church split, where were these problems coming? Even when they were just split to give birth to Eastleigh and these other tabernacles, where were all these things coming from? Difference in understanding of how to proceed when there are differences. And differences are only effectively handled when you refer to a constitution. But when you refer to a constitution, that is more like a template, because this is a Branham Tabernacle constitution. It's more like a template. It doesn't apply to your local situation and stuff. So we have a problem there, and we have people who are not legal minds, but they are just church elders, and they understand the doctrine on all these other things. They've seen things come and go in the church, and they believe they are the right people to contribute to customizing this constitution. That's where we have a problem.
You see, that's exactly what I've been saying, to say we have got a copy of the Branham Tabernacle Constitution, which is now being read in some churches at the beginning of year, or when there's going to be elections, or it might not be the constitution that is read, is the church order, you know, of 1965 that is then read. But I don't know to the viewers also that are going to watch this, you know,
But you need to appreciate one thing, Tapiwa. Like I said, a church is a regulated institution by the state and government authorities.
Yes.
A church is required to produce an association constitution. So these constitutions, they are submitted there, but they are too vague, and sometimes they don't apply to the local situation, but they have met the requirement of submitting constitution, because no church is officially registered in the laws of Zimbabwe without producing a constitution. In business, if it's a profit-based business, then that will be memorandum of articles.
Under articles, yeah.
Yes, but in churches, it's constitutions, because that is a non-profit organization, a religious organization. They are required to produce a constitution. Then we just put our local letterhead, then paste in the Branham Tabernacle Constitution. That's where the problem is. And this is being done by people who are not legal minds. They don't even understand the implications of interpretation of law.
Thank you for saying that, because why I'm saying this, you know, when then trouble arises, you have these situations where people say, oh, trustees are not spiritual persons, you know, and even and maybe a misunderstanding of what a trustee board actually do, you know, because for some, I don't want to say for some, myself, I grew up thinking trustees has only got to do with making sure the plate gets around, you know, because I didn't understand what a trustee is. My understanding was that they issue the place, get around, get the monies, and they pay rent and buy fuel for the generator, and you know. But then, if you understand what a trustee board is, you realize that if in the message circles, when you go on to say, okay, fine, the trustees are the owners of the church, what they are meaning is it's registered as a charity, and as a charity, you're supposed to have what? Trustees, a trustee board, and the trustees are like the custodians. They are the big people that have got a say on everything that what happens at that church, you know. And it is this either peripheral understanding of these terms, and you see why I kind of like drove the idea of like, is the constitution, that which was submitted, right, that which is being adapted to the local assembly, readily available, then also to the individual. Can I go to the trustees? Can I go to the deacons and say, oh, by the way, where is our church constitution? You know, I can give you an example of this one that I'm writing here. It's telling about, it goes on what they believe, what is their objective, what are you supposed to do to be a member of the church officers, how are they elected, where they come from, and the meetings that the church have, and amendment and suspension of this constitution in just one pager. So can I get a one pager that is beyond just enunciating to say, oh, the role of the pastor is going to be the head of everything and he's going to be the chairman of the trustee board. This is why then the pastor is the chairman of the trustee board, not necessarily the chairman of the deacon board. Do we have those? And if we don't, what are we supposed to do to make sure that then this Gerald generation that is coming up, because you are raising your son, you are telling him, you see, my son, this is what a constitution is. You are teaching him, okay, fine, in business, these are the articles of understanding. At church, there's supposed to be a constitution. They're going to ask those questions. Are you just going to hand me then that? Is it? And my question where I am, sorry to repeat myself, is it readily available? Can you go to your church and be given that? And I'm happy.
Yes.
So
just like any constitution document, it is your responsibility to request for one. There is no way the government of Zimbabwe is going to send people warming up my robots distributing the constitution. No, even the constitution itself says so. It's your duty to go wherever that constitution can be found, the request for your copy, and it will be given to you for free. The thing is now, we want to be too spiritual zvekuti unobva watanga kutozvitongesa wega utonoti movie andida kuita aiti because wakutozvibvunza ega munga kuti vachamubvunza kuti constitution yeuripidi waivazosvika pakufunga kuti uda constitution ausati watomboenda kumatrustee acho, you see, because uri kutya kuti you are going to be labeled there. But I tell you one thing, the constitution of the church is readily available to anyone. And I'm not speaking because maybe I'm speaking on behalf of the church and stuff. No, I'm talking from experience, because when we had those experiences, for me personally, I had to request one because I knew that this is just church politics at hand. And I tell you one thing, church politics is dangerous than politics dzanachamisa. Church is dangerous because we
all experienced it, my friend. We were in the battleground together.
And I'm going to do a video of some sort about these things, because when we look at what happened there, it changed the trajectory of the message church in Zimbabwe. It wasn't just Eastleigh, because Eastleigh is a big puzzle piece. It's a big piece of a big puzzle in the message church in Zimbabwe, in Africa. The same thing happened when Belvedere, split. The same thing happened when Mashigo. Those are big churches you can't ignore. It's like right now we talk of Musara splitting or the Highlands church splitting. My friend, that is a very big impact on the message. Those are big churches. But we are not comfortable having these discussions, but we know where our problems were, because one, people were now interested in knowing what will happen, and the people who are interested never knew or never requested a constitution. And I tell you, 99% of the people never knew there is a constitution in place that had to be followed.
You see why I drive my point, Jerry? Because then the presence of the constitution is not supposed to be there in the filing cabinets. Can it be posted on outside there? Do you get that?
No, but you need to understand that any constitution, it is your duty as an interested party to request one.
I get that, but I think where I'm coming from now, after all this has happened and everything else has happened, is you want someone to be part and parcel of, Jerry, you are not going to take me on board as part of your company without me signing a contract.
Yes.
And you then say, your HR send me, every company that does onboarding, you are going to be sent thousands of pages of papers to say,
we send you a lot of policy manuals, SOPs and stuff.
SOP, this is your work. Your work is going to be probably the shortest you will receive. Things that doesn't have to do your work are going to be thousands. This is exactly this is how you text. This is the company network you use. This is how you park your car. We go at every nitty details. But I'm saying you are going into church, Jerry. Let's be honest. You're going into church and you hear, here we have got no law except love. We have got no book except the Bible. honestly, if you are going to go there for a long time, you are not going to think of a constitution until this is why even when you then approach someone to say, oh, I need a copy of the constitution, it's either they will be like, COD, haven't you read COD or this 1965 church order? They are not going to produce, because we have then kept it as if the moment you want to request it. Now, I might be biased and I might be very wrong. We have kept it as if the moment you request it, you are looking for a loophole. As if you are in a loophole, yet it is something that is supposed to be foundational for you, Jerry, to say, now I can freely pay my tithe. Do you get what I'm saying? Now I can freely pay my tithe. Now I can freely participate. Now I can send my children to Sunday school. It is the church constitution. But for me, this drives from the idea of like, we have had these issues where we are
reduce the volume?
Okay. We are averse to documentation of things that should be readily available to the members of our churches. Did you get that? And I'm saying, because it's you being part and parcel, your membership, you know, you're not supposed to be always reminded of your membership when it's supposed to, are we voting to chase people away from church? And those that vote are the ones that support with their presence and that support with their tithes, or either one.
That's our order, yes.
You know, but I'm saying it shouldn't just be when we are to do church discipline. It already is documented somewhere, or if it is not in one, take those things, curate a book to say, okay, fine, this is our, you know, church conduct in summary. Like I gave an example of this little one pager to say, in summary, this is what we expect from this place.
That's where Tapiwa, obviously, that's where we need to learn and improve. And the nature of humanity is you create what is called the institutional history, which normally comes from hard and painful experiences. So I tell you, whatever happened, especially at our assembly, that will never happen again, because now people know and they've learned the hard way. And I think we still need to improve on the availing of these things and educating the church, because you know what? If you have got a church that is informed, that church is easy to lead.
Yes.
And that church is truly empowered. But kana tiri kudila sune cheche kuti ignorant, and you know that the people you are dealing with are ignorant, and you lead them anyhow in their ignorance.
That's what we want.
It's going to be chaotic the moment you step away. But the thing is now, if you look at how we do our things in the message, and I'm talking as a believer, not as an office holder, I'm talking as a believer, is we try so much to separate ourselves away from denominationalism. And what are the key traits of denominationalism? We are talking of formalized structures, like a church council or a board. It's one thing we don't agree with, which either way we need to agree with, because as long as we have got a deacon board and a trustee board, you might as well have
you are actually an organization.
Yes, it's already there. Then you've got signatories. As long as you have got the signatories, then obviously, yes, then you have got all these different structures, like this one is the chairperson for finance, this one is the chairperson of social welfare of the church staff. It's already there, but it's not just being formalized, of which these are discussions we need to have. And I tell you, we are not only the only ones who are having these discussions. Everyone is having them, because we have seen problems getting out of hand, which were never supposed to go out of hand. Like if I look at when our church split, it's so painful for me. We were not supposed to have split, because the people who knew the constitution, they chose to weaponize the constitution. And it was so easy to weaponize the constitution, because you are dealing with people who are ignorant, and you are dealing with people who have never seen that constitution. Even in that war fiasco that happened, I tell you, up to now, there are people who never bothered to check what the constitution says. You see, it was just church politics, and this camp was recruiting its own people to defend their own 2030 agenda. This one was recruiting their own people to defend their status quo, and this one was more like this. And if you look at it now, who suffered the most?
It's the layman.
The youth.
Yeah.
It's not just the church; it's the youth. Because look at how united we were as the youth. We were doing amazing things as the youth. But now, iwo tatmagi negrupu rako mataka kudzinganisana nehamai makananga uko isusu tabva tasara tichidzinganisana nehamai takananga uko avo wavha wauioneka wakaboka udzikasa wakadai, and there were almost fist fights. The pulpit was weaponized. It was now used as a tool to campaign and to decampaign other candidates. And we saw all these things zvakareururwa kuma-closet and stuff zvakupublishwa. For the first time, I saw how dirty church politics is, because tine ma-leaders akatanga kucreate ma-ghost accounts funding the youth to push their voice. And my youth is social media, how it works. And we use it as a tool. And I'm equally guilty as anyone, because I know the groups and ndakazobuda ininika takutoudza kuti hazikuvhudende andisipiri zvekuna mata zvatatakuita pai. I want to tell you, because I participated in all those fiasco. You know, ukachitasa kuti it divided the future church, because ukachitasa kuti just before Pastor Chesa died, vaiparidza mharidzo of passing on the baton, and he ran on a very serious series, like he knew that his time was up, you know. And there were all these exercises dzakanga vakutiitisa muchechi vachiti chechi inofanira kuvhurwa nemuyouth. Manduda mayouth agoti service inolidwa nemuyouth achiparidza uye achiinterpreta. I remember imi mana Tapmark, you're part of my interpreters and stuff. We leading the church, and that was the pastor encouraging everyone to do that. Then when the pastor was taken off the scene, we were practically divided into 3 big camps.
Sheep without a shepherd.
Yes, without a shepherd. And the worst thing that happened, and I'm very sorry because we were part of that. The church, the youth was divided, and the youth no contributor. Zvinhu zvakawanda pachurch. Ukatarisa even in my numbers, my youth ndo akawandisa pachurch. Then ukachitasa kuti all right kuti zvinhu zviitwe zvigadzirisike, and ensuring what we call the foregoing concern of the church, to make sure that the church is there in the next 5 years, to make sure the church is there in the next 10 years. It was destroyed. And patai participate muzvinhu zviya and we knew that something is wrong, but takabva taita politics dzekuti you can't if you don't support
people know
you need to be dealt with. So ukatasva even my youth isusu takatanga kuyanikana dirty linen yekuti zvimwe zvataitendeuka kubackground zvakatanga kuchibuda mumagroups and stuff. I remember there was once a campaign yakatomboitwa yangu cheche yakasimba mumagroups ema, you know, because I was also one of the most vocal persons there. Then it was kuti we've got these other people also lining dirty linen of other people's there. Then it became very clear that this is no longer about the body of Christ. This is just about who is in control and who is eating. I tell you, even up to now, I stand with my words. Because it was so dangerous. At one service, I had to walk out.
So
it got to a point that vanhu vakanga vakwadreswa nemazita now. Zvokuti amunogona kusadonwa zvaro kuti Musara patodaiwa hapana sikazoti nyaya dzine dzaMusara idzi. By experience that I am Musara and stuff. All those things happened, and for the first time we had to look for a church in a church. You see, and we were going everywhere. Ndakatombono Warren Park, ndakambono kulo kwa brother ali kubudiriro kwa brother Komich. We were everywhere. Kusvika papoint yakazoti ini zvinoda ndiende kumabuza kana tazo serious nekunamba ndachadzoka, because whatever is being fed on the pulpit is not the word of God. This is just campaigning and stuff, and all that it was coming from weaponization of the constitution, weaponization of the pulpit, and we helped in that because we were an ignorant church. No one really bothered to understand what the articles of association of the church were, or the constitution if it was where. Takatozongoona pakutozotanga kutozochibuda kuti no church ndeyaningi ndiye akazokontribute akadai ndiye akazosaina apaestaff chichichi mwakuti inini ndakavakapila ire staff.
I was the founding chairman. You know,
Yes.
this is why you saw I kind of like drove the idea of let them be readily available. Because I respect pastors. I respect pastors because usually when a church is starting up, you know, there is a lot of work that they do. You know, some of them, they are still in work while still pastoring. Is because you said it's not necessarily just about family. It's, you know, anything that you know, the other segment we spoke about people who are lazy, and most of the time the church isn't even giving much to sustain the pastor, let alone to take care of what is. So the pastor is to fish from his own pockets. I've been privileged, and I thank God for this, and I've got respect. I've been privileged that I stayed with pastors. I was trained by pastors. I stayed with pastors, and I had the privilege of seeing them being human, them being men of God. And I got to appreciate, to say, you know what, if ever I was gonna be a pastor, that is what probably I think I would be easily run away from, because those people, God bless them, they carry a lot of burdens that is unseen. Preaching, which is supposed to be their main job, is probably the last thing that they have,
No, that's
because
the last thing.
you see,
Yeah.
because they've got a lot of things that are coming to them. So kudos to the pastors that are trying their best to stay into the field and making sure that the people of God are fed. But I think this is also, even if as an appeal to pastors who are going to hear this, what these little two gentlemen are talking about is avail those documents, avail those things. Let them, even if it doesn't take away anything from anyone, to say, okay, in this session we are going to explain to you, we are going to have this, because we have got, I say, you're saying it's people who don't have even, you know, we're not even qualified to interpret laws, but we are blessed even in the community to have people who are lawyers, constitutional lawyers, people who have done.
But do they have a voice at the church? Do they have influence at the church? Do they sit in the board of trustees or deacons? No.
Before we sit, we get to either do they have now. This now speaks to the institutional. I think this is the institutional weakness. If I'm giving an assessment, and I always tell my uncle Francis to say, the strongest point of how the message churches are run is its weakest point, where there is a lot of like, we don't answer to anyone else. So at the end of the day, you only answer to the whims of the person who is supposed to be the head of the church, in this case, who is the pastor, which is supposed to keep us from this, we use this term sovereignty, right? Each local Hebrew series, each local church is sovereign in what it decides who its pastors are and stuff. But then it becomes a weakness in that we do not have at times safeguarding measures that are put in place if there's abuse of power or misuse of power or misuse of
They are there, Tapio. They are there.
Let me finish. It also falls. We're saying they might be there, but the enforcement of them, if the one who is supposed to be the chief safeguarder is compromised, just like in the case of what we've been discussing, what happened at Eastleigh Tabernacle, you know, if then the boards, and if then the grouping of men, the elders, the leadership that is supposed to be safeguarding, are either compromised or vying for their own interest, we, the youth, are going to suffer. So if people are going to have proper conversations, you know, and to say, okay, fine, we are going to equip, everyone must know this is what we stand for, outside of saying, do you believe in Malachi 4, William Branham? Do you believe in Revelation 10:7? As we are conducting ourselves as a church, this is what we ought to do. If they can avail those things to either the laity, the church itself, so that, you know, we speak of Nicolaitism, you know, to say, okay, fine, it's conquering the laity, but this is another way of conquering the laity in keeping them in ignorance. So it is more, as long as they are ignorant of what exactly they are standing up for outside from the tapes, you know, and how the administration thing is usually handled, they are still, you are dominating them in a different way that they don't know. You are only going to bring out your joker in a time when you have been put on a corner. I don't think that is the best way, you know, whereas you can hash it down. Even if we say we are adopting the Branham Tabernacle Constitution, plaque it on Pafoya. Do you get where I'm coming from? Plaque it on where everybody, when they see, oh, we've got notices.
The thing is that the thing is not just having a constitution. What was lacking, or what is still lacking in the majority of churches in Zimbabwe, or even in general Zimbabwe as a whole, is a leader having a succession plan, a clear succession plan.
That's why I was talking
about Mugabe chaiye Bobo akazobviswa zvichisimba. He had no clear succession plan. But trust me, if there is an
Aripo has
organization with a
has not
robust
moved.
constitution, yes, ZANU-PF has got a robust constitution. The government of Zimbabwe has got a robust constitution. Even the opposition, Yana Changirai stuff, Changirai was violating the constitution left, right, and center, but that party was formed mainly by lawyers.
Yeah.
Who have contributed to the writing of our constitution that is in effect right now. So the thing is, it's not just about having a constitution. It's also about, as an organization, as leadership of that time, you need to have a clear succession plan. Tasakuti masplit AS aitika mumarizo. It's only one or two you can point to say aiwa yanga difference in doctrine and stuff up. But mazhinji acho, it's all about who succeeds who.
That's what you see why I was pointing to that, because then I was coming to that issue here. Either we are going to have a vice pastor, associate pastor, whatever you're gonna name him, you know. And why I was pushing the issue of constitution is because it is then in those constitutions, at least, do you get this? At least if the constitution, because if we go back to the East debacle, what happened was then is in the constitution, I think this is what I heard. You verified the constitution, I didn't get to say it.
Yeah.
It's said then we don't have an elected or appointed associate pastor. I'm not so sure what if in the constitution if there was actually a provision for an associate pastor or not. I don't know if
it's never there.
So you see now. So this then what happens? We have got people who are a church who are hearing the Branham Tabernacle, the office of a pastor, you see, the office of the associate pastor, the board of chairman of the board, the deacons. That is what is preached on the pulpit. You are not being told what we are using at this place. Do you get where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
So the assumption then is when everyone is seeing, and unfortunately for the situation at Eastleigh, we could see who was acting in the form of an associate pastor. You see, and a lot of people we then assumed to say, oh, okay, this is, you know, it was kind of like given.
Yeah, but you know what? On that issue, assuming is not appointment.
Yes.
Was there any formal appointment done to that regard? That was the main question, and that was never addressed even now, because from what I know, Pastor Chesa never made a formal appointment to say this is my associate pastor staff. And we are looking at this from an angle. Even when the pastor was away, people would change pastoral duties at the church, and there was precedence, and there was a real case, you know. So being close to the pastor, and people would easily assume that this is the natural successor or the associate. That wasn't the case, and that's where now everything was now based on interpretation.
This is why
that's where we had the problem, because this wasn't institutionalized. It was now just your opinion versus my opinion, and the one with the bigger voice wins. That was the case.
Exactly. And this is where I'm driving my point. My point really isn't necessarily about either assuming was right or wrong, but I'm saying the assumption is being derived from a certain pattern that is being seen. Whether which one holds strong or not is which one. Do you get my point? Where if then that which is operating is not public, you know, if then that which is in operation at a time of crisis, if you do not, if a country doesn't have military rule in a time of war, you know, we'll go back to the times of the judges where each man would do what was good upon his heart. Do you get that? So I'm saying then, because we have learned that assuming isn't the best, and because then the leader in their time of leadership, they didn't come out either by declaration using their powers, presidential powers, if you want to say, or either by whatever means that they might use, they didn't have. You cannot necessarily fault the ones that are assuming, because what they are hearing, and this is my contention, what they are hearing, here's a pastor and an associate pastor. So somewhat they have to fit someone. They don't know that the one that exists in the hands of the lawyers and in the hands of the trustees doesn't have that provision. Do you see where I'm coming from? They don't understand
that is very unfortunate.
Yes. So
it happened.
This is where I'm saying, if there is a push, I would rather people be read the one that has been adopted by the place, and people and either leadership comes and say, you know what, as a church, we have thought that it is not good for us to be holding this office of the associate pastor. You see? So whenever they read about the constitution, it's easy to say, according to the Tabernacle Tabernacle, the pastor is going to be the head. After the pastor is going to be a body of elders where we have got people who are doing either pastoral work, or we are going to have deacons, or we are going to have not for 30, 40 years saying associate. We're reading every year, end of year, you know, we're appointing deacons also after the pastor, associate pastor, but today we're dealing with deacons. Do you get where I'm coming from? And then
that's the point I tried to raise, Tapiwa. That's exactly the point I tried to raise. Your pastor, his job and his calling is to be your shepherd of your soul. So having to assume that they know this legal context, no, takuto taura zisizvo, avasi malawyer. So these things can be zvinogona kutopotseka kuti munhu haatozvikoshese pazvizvi zvakakosha. Like what I was really saying is the bottom line, the point we need to take home is not just in the church, but in Zimbabwe, there was this culture, and it's still there, of not having a clear succession plan. Look at the dramas that are going to Mozambique right now. No clear succession plan, and we are going to fight. Why? Because our leaders is just in us as African leaders. We don't have a clear plan because we have this mindset that I should stay forever.
Yes, I was actually.
So that's why I respect my churches. Akaita sana anana zayoja. Why? A pastor can be retired. When you're serving time, you are no longer effective to the body of Christ.
So they retire you. I was coming to that.
They will retire you.
In the morning, I was reading something, Jerry. Sorry to speak on top of you. In the morning, I was actually reading something to say, okay, fine. In as much it was on Twitter, you know, and it's an American guy. I think he posted something along these lines to say, do pastors actually have a retiring time, or you're going to die in pulpit? I think that's the way he put himself. You know, are we getting ourselves ready to die in the pulpit, or we are getting ourselves ready to say, you know what, I'm going to serve for a certain long time, and then if I'm going to continue to, in America, they emphasize much on the preaching pastor of every Sunday morning. They say that is your main goal. You might miss every other service, or you might delegate, but the Sunday main service is the pastor's service. So they were saying, are pastors aiming to die in the pulpit, or they are going to reach, if God gives them many years, they're going to reach a time where they can say, you know what, my body and age naturally no longer allows me. I can be of pastoral work, but this is the person that is going to be your pastor.
Yeah, that is coming.
Age.
That is coming from the lessons we learned from the Bible. There is no leader in the Bible who retired. Either they were killed in power, or they were taken to glory when they were still in power. So we are coming from that influence of the Bible to say a religious organization, you are a God's appointee. Let's take an example of the story of David and Saul. God has officially retired Saul. He's no longer happy with him. He no longer deals with him. Whatever Saul was doing was his own mind. God was no longer part of that. But even after that, it took him 20 more years later. You know, he was still running things. So, and David had to allow it to be so, because in his own hand, in his own mind, I cannot put my hand on the anointed
of God. Yeah.
So we are coming from that background where you say, yes, you have got ambition. Yes, you can be anointed and appointed, but you only take effect when I'm no longer here. And this is what now constitutes what we call the general mindset of our leaders in the church. They are taking that from the Bible. But yes.
But I can give you, just for discussion's sake, we can give you the parallels. Priesthood succession, the high priest. Yep. And it's not the best of answers, but Eli, back in the book of Samuel, Eli and his son Hophni and Phinehas.
Yeah.
You know, in as much as he's still the priest of the house, they are the people that now are running. In as much as they are corrupt, they are now running the works of how the temple is going to operate, because the word of God then comes and say, you know what, they are taking the women, they're taking the fattening. Yeah.
You need to be sober about this thing. Mm-hmm. They were running on behalf of.
Good. This is exactly where I want you to. This is why I'm actually bringing it. He is alive. He is alive, but there are people who are running whilst he is. Okay, let's come to the message itself. William Branham is there. Brian Neville is running Jefferson Tabernacle when William Branham is up to the west and is up about and everything else. And then he says in church order, I don't want to misquote him, he says, you guys, I think it's not, if it's church order, it's one of the other books. He says, you follow him, you know, and if a case that then he fails to deal with, that's the one you're going to involve me. He is there in his. I mean, sometimes it's easy for us to say, okay, fine, he is the prophet, you know, and we tend to say, oh, then he's the prophet, then he's not operating in the pastoral. But on constitution, then we get to see that he is the pastor. You see, and talking about constitution, on record, Billy Paul was the pastor of Branham Tabernacle, whilst Oman Neville was the preaching pastor of Branham Tabernacle.
Yes.
You see, and so you see a pastor who's never on the pulpit, but then you also have a pastor who is the one that's on the pulpit. So you, I don't know what you see there, but you see that then they.
No, let's be realistic about these things. So we need to have a way of making sure chinchedu chakachengeteka. So ukatasa madrama yesa anenge achiitika and stuff. Ukatasa kuti right now let's look at the example that achitaura pa church pangu in pa East and it. People who I might call the status quo by then. They wanted to make sure that, okay, yes, we appreciate that the pastor is no longer there, but family have maintain a certain level of influence about Chinchedu. And it's true. When we are looking at the understanding African mindset, nature is right in general, even in Mumporovita, for example, church, but you know, he can't pastor the church because he even admitted, I can't pastor you because I'm always away. I'm giving you this pastor. But the pastor who it was what chini can go bata zvangu chini chine muridzi. So even the example was it was set, precedent was set, and that is the general understanding. You could even in the next natural successor at law is Billy Paul, but the people there, they know good to know Pastor Nephew has been pastoring us for over 2 decades. But they know good to know so even in churches, we can never run away from that reality, whether we like it or not. Unless you are coming in now from a church in any organization, like I forgot to say SDA and Methodist stuff, Roman Catholic and Anglican, there is a board somewhere which appoints my pastors. Do you know how they do it with Ayoja? Because Ayoja, one of my pastors, I know developer that entitlement of ownership of a place. Zayoja kwagara 5 years or 8 years no move.
They rotate. Yeah.
And they make sure that the pastor has to complain because at every assembly they built a nice house.
Pastoral.
Yes. So you move in there. Chawan kuzviitira izvo ndeye kuti munhu anozoti no. Ndakaumba chechi ino from zero ndakabvira ndakaona baba guti namai guti panapa vanhu vese vakatendoka nekuda kwangu panapa. Saka ya chechi yangu. And they had problems in that regard. So they had to fix that problem. So we are coming towards that also as a message to see we have presidents. Churches yekumasvingo yapukanyika nekuda kwaizvozvo. East Tabernacle yaita futi izvozvo. And trust me, Ndinongotongona matano Mwari vatichengetere mufundisi Chitsinde pavanodonha futi. Just wait for drama. I'm telling you, because kunyange varipo vanotozva kuti chinhu chikachi ndechamudhara chinhu tiringochengeta tiringobata. So you can never run away from church politics and the general mindset. And the precedent is there in the Bible and coming also from the prophet.
That's true. I think that's the best note for us to put a pause on this one, because this one is interesting, and I actually enjoyed it. I think, but let's just put a pause on this one, because we've been on it here on Let's Talk. I'm your host, Tapiwa Makosa, together with Gerald Musara, and we've been talking a lot of things, and the last part is very, very interesting. So make sure you get to this, and please give us your comments, share, copy this, and share into your WhatsApp groups. Send it to your pastor, let him listen also, and we want to hear the comments. And if anyone would want to be part of this Let's Talk, and want to discuss, and if they want to clarify on some of the things that we have said here, because we do not claim to have the best knowledge and understanding. This is our opinions. This is Gerald's opinion. This is my opinions. And if you want to say, maybe you want to speak from authority, and you want to clarify some of the things that we might have misunderstood and naysayed, the platform is open, and we are here so that we can keep the conversation going. But above everything, we want to make sure that everyone is worshiping and giving God glory without asinamabundu pamoyo and everything else. Gerald, it's been a pleasure as always of talking to you, and I know we say we put a comma, so maybe when we have another time we'll find something that we'll be talking about, and I don't know if you have got any parting words that you'd want to say before we wrap this up. Whatever you want to say here, I'm gonna give you 2 minutes.
Okay, what I may say is, as Christians, we need to be sober. We need to be realistic. In as much as we want to be spiritual, whatever is affecting us, zvinongoaffecta munhu wese ari panyika. So whether mitemo yenyika or ma-constitutions atachataura nezvawo, they affect you every day. So chandaida kungotaura ndechekuti ari kufudza mweya wako nepauri pari kufudzwa mweya wako, handiti atori munhu ane ma-interests ake, ane maonero aanoita zvinhu. So at the end of the day, their opinion also comes into play pakufudzwa kwemweya wako. Then with respect to entrepreneurship and business as a Christian, yes, you can proceed to do so, but for me, my advice is you should never take business advice from your pastor unless he has got business background, because they know nothing about business. And I tell you, 99% of your problems in a business, normally that causes businesses to crash down, are somebody spiritual. It's a lack of systems, lack of industry knowledge, lack of competitive advantage, and all those things. And these are things we need to learn as Christians, because at the end of the day, we need to accumulate wealth so that we can take care of the church, so that we can use our blessings to also help in the distribution of the word. So church ikazozara vanhu varombo, yes, tinoziva tinenge tinavo kudenga, handiti tinoziva kuti urombo zvekare haureve kuti Mwari vakurasha, handiti but kana tichikwanisa isusu kutotangawo something, tinokwanisa kuemploya 1 or 2 brothers, tinokwanisa kutocontribute to the coffers of the church. That will be good, but the best way to do that now is to have formal training ine chekuita neindustry yauda kuoperata iyoyo. Kana chechi kwenyu uchiofwa ma-spaces akadaro for training and stuff, that's good for you. But I tell you, as a Christian entrepreneur, make it a habit of approaching consultant experts. It's good for your business, it's good for your growth. I think that's all I can say right now.
Thank you so much, Gerald. Thank you so much. It's lovely to see the girls there joining Daddy. Daddy has been hi. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Let's Talk. This was an invigorating conversation, and I think you could see the pulse, the energy. This is what we bring, and this is what we want to bring every Monday night here at Let's Talk for you, a platform where we discuss some of these things. We touched on one of, I think it's an issue that many people have, you know, you've been trying not to say anything, trying to be nice and everything, but hopefully let's get the conversation going, and it will help us. So don't forget to like, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Please share also and leave a comment. It helps us to reach all other people that might need to see this and watch this and enjoy this conversation. So until next time, this has been your host, Tapiwa Tapmak Makosa.